Hi, welcome to part 8 of the Jack Russell cross stitch. I'm just about to thread my needle. Thought I'd lost my needle threader again, and then we'll get cracking. Now, if you watched the last part 7 that I put on, you will remember me saying not to do anything you don't want to do. Don't let anybody force you into something that you don't want, right? Well, my grandma, born in 1905, would not be forced into anything she didn't want to do. She was as stubborn as a mule. Her birth sign was Taurus the bull, and she was like a bull with a sore head, right? She would not do anything she did not want to do. And during the First World War, a lot of the young men that would have been considered suitable husbands for her went to war and didn't come back. So probably the potential suitors that my grandma would have been interested in just weren't there anymore. So she her parents were business people. So the kind of, in those days, you know, your parents would suggest people, suitors for you. So I think she had 2 or 3 on the go at once. And I think she used to see them all on the same day, probably a Sunday afternoon, for example. There was a school teacher, a vicar's son. I can't remember the third one, but I'm fairly certain there were 3. So at the time, the town that we live in had a railway station. Now, it got bombed in the Second World War, but this is the First World War. So my grandma used to go along to the railway station and meet her first suitor, and they would go for a walk. Whether she was chaperoned or unchaperoned, I don't know, but obviously they were in public, and they would go for a walk. Now, none of these young men really were the type of person that my grandma was interested in. She didn't want a school teacher, she didn't want a vicar's son, and she didn't want the other one. But she would meet them, let's just say for argument's sake, on a Sunday. When she'd met the first one and they'd gone for the walk, and he would tell her how much he loved her and how much he wanted them to be engaged and this, that and the other. After he'd done all that, and when he was waiting for his train home, he would go to the shop, the sweet shop at the train station, and he would buy my grandma a box of chocolates, which she would eat with the one that got off the next train. Also, not one she really wanted to marry. So they would eat the chocolates, and come train time, he would replace them. And she would eat them with the third one. She was so naughty. I don't know how, well, she was quite a large woman. She was quite large, but I don't know how she wasn't enormous. There might have been a small box. But anyway, this is the story that told me. But then, none of them really floated our boat. And the town that we live in is by the sea, and Blythe it was a thriving port at the time. I mean, it is again now. It went through the doldrums for a long time, but at the time, just after World War One, there was a thriving port, and there was always a lot of sort of commercial boats coming in, as well as naval boats coming in. I'm not going to say merchant navy, but I'll just say commercial shipping. And a boat came in, and the first shop they used to come to when they got off the ship was my great granddad and grandma's off licence. Now, they always also sold cigarettes, which shops did in those days. And my grandma spotted a young man who took her fancy. And she was being shy, and she wouldn't go out into the shop when he came in for his cigarettes. She just used to hide. In those days, the shop was the front of the house, and you lived behind the shop and upstairs. Your parlour was behind the shop. And there's actually still one shop like that in Blythe. But at the time, that was the way it was. I don't know if any of you watched When the Boat Comes In, but that was what their shop was like. They worked in the shop, went out the back and into the living accommodation. So my grandma, there was only a curtain between the front of the shop and the back of the shop. And my grandma used to keek through the curtain looking at this particular young man who had caught her fancy. And one day, my grandma's little brother, who was 9 years younger than her, so probably would have been about 13 at the time, something like that, ran up and shoved her straight through the curtain. And she fell through. And the young man noticed her. And he asked her if she would like to go out. So she started dating him, and then of course his boat had to go away. She was a bit sad, but they corresponded. And the ship, should I say, it wasn't a boat, the ship went to Canada, whereupon the young man got off the ship and got a job. They still corresponded. And my grandma had decided to part with all of this, waiting for my great-grandma and granddad to find her somebody that she actually was attracted to. She would go to Canada and marry him. So they took her across to Liverpool, I think it was. And she got on a ship, left everything she knew behind to go and make a life with a man she'd probably known for 2 weeks. She was so seasick that they were well out to sea by the time she even ventured out of her cabin. And she used to tell the tale of people used to say, "Where did you get on?" because they hadn't seen her. But anyway, she went over to Canada and they were married. And that young man was my granddad. Not sure if they had the greatest marriage. I think I have been informed that their marriage was a bit turbulent, to put it mildly. But they had a child when they were first married, and sadly he died. He was stuck in the birth canal. These days he would have survived, but back in 1929 or whatever it was, probably 1930, 1931, 29 they were married, I think. He died. And then in 1935, she found out that she was pregnant again. Now, by that time, so hang on, just let me work this out. My grandma was born in 1905. My Uncle Billy was born in 14. So when he was 16, that was 1930. So in 1930, it must have been possibly when my grandma was pregnant, possibly after she'd lost the baby. They upsticked. I think the depression had happened and people were losing businesses left, right and centre. So they got rid of all the businesses, sold everything and moved to Canada. And when my grandma got pregnant with my mum, they decided they'd all move back. So they all moved back to England, and my mum was born in Choppington. in a colliery row, in a colliery house, in a colliery row. My granddad was lucky enough to have got a job at the local pit. He was a fitter and he'd managed to get a job at the local pit. And my grandma was born in a colliery row. She tells the tale that she would put the coal in the morning my mother was born. Could have been my auntie, but she always tells the tale that she put the coal in. My grandma and granddad, my great grandma and granddad had got another shop, and my grandma and granddad just went on, and then they moved to Ashington, and my auntie was born in Rollington Terrace at Ashington. I think it might have been my auntie that my grandma put the coal in the day that she was born, but my granddad had taken my mum out when my grandma was in labour, and my granddad and my mum were very, very close. I think because my grandma looked after the baby, so my granddad looked after my mum when he was off work, and they absolutely idolised each other. But that was their life. Eventually they bought a house. They moved back to Blythe and bought a house. I think they must have been heavily subsidised by my great grandma and granddad. But that was just life then, you know. And like I say, I think it was a little bit turbulent. I think it was probably my grandma's stubbornness to do exactly what she wanted to do that was difficult for my granddad. I don't know, I might be wrong, but I could never see a bad side of my granddad. To be fair, I couldn't see a bad side of my grandma either. I just knew that she was stubborn. But yeah, that was them. That was my grandma and that was my granddad. And I spoke about my granddad the other day with a little bit about my grandma. You know, she did what she wanted to do. And she used to sit when she was getting older, and she ruled the roost. She used to sit on her chair either at her house or at my mum's house, like the typical matriarch, and everybody had to defer to grandma. And we all loved her, absolutely loved her dearly. But my goodness, if she had a bee in her bonnet, you knew about it. She was a feisty lady, and she lived until she was 98, just shy of her 99th birthday. And I'm sure I have told you before that she didn't take supplements. There was no such thing as supplements when my grandma was young. She was a terrible cook, but we all loved her, and until the day she died, she ruled the roost. Sadly, my granddad went first, having been a smoker for a lot of years. My grandma, she went into, my grandma and granddad moved into a bungalow just around the corner from us when I was about 16 or 17. And they hadn't been there very long when my mum and dad moved and left them. And then when my granddad died, my grandma went into sheltered housing, and she had a couple of falls. So I can't remember whether she went into a home first or whether she went to live with my mum first. But it was very, very difficult for my mum. Oh, I'll tell you a story. My grandma always wore boots, and I mean always wore boots. And she always wore stockings, not tights, stockings. And as she got older, she found it quite difficult, as a lot of older people do, to go to the toilet. And she was living with my mum at the time, and she needed to go. She'd been taking her laxatives because she needed to go. Now, my mum and dad had a lounge upstairs with a bedroom behind it with an ensuite bathroom, so that was basically my grandma's home, this lounge, because she was immobile at this point. Well, I mean, she could walk with a wheelie, but she couldn't really go up and down the stairs. So she kind of lived in this upstairs lounge, and she needed to go to the toilet. So she rang the bell. Betty, I need to go to the toilet. Well, by the time my mum realised the bell was ringing and got up the stairs, my grandma had got up because she really, really needed to go to the toilet. Now, bear in mind, she wore boots. They ended up in the bin because the laxative had done its trick. It had done its job, and so had my grandma. Bless her. So very sadly, that pair of boots had to go in the bin. But my grandma had lots of other pairs of boots because she loved boots. Eventually, she had to go into it was a residential home, but it wasn't. It wasn't a nursing home. She was still had all her buttons on her, and she could still walk around. But she was supposed to be supervised when she was being washed. She wasn't supposed to be left on her own because she was quite frail. And the care assistants left her sitting at the sink while they went to get something. But they hadn't pushed her close enough to the sink, so she decided she would wash herself, stubborn old bird that she was. And she slipped off the stool and broke both of her legs. And she never walked again after that. And she had to go into a nursing home. Now, although my daughter will disagree, she was of sound mind. I mean, she was getting forgetful, don't get us wrong. She was 98-year-old, but she was of sound mind. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been on the floor of the home that she was in. She would have been upstairs because the dementia patients were upstairs. My grandma was on the ground floor. And, you know, she was there and she had her one room and she was happy in her lot. She wouldn't come out of it apart from to go for meals. She did not socialise with people that she didn't know. She was a little bit awkward. But she was happy there, and I was happy to say that Tom, my son, got to see her. And her favourite thing was, "He's far too bonny for a laddie. He should be a lassie." But I think what Stephanie's getting confused about, my grandma had never heard the name Stephanie before. So she always called her Jennifer because that was the name that came to mind. And it was typical that she would be Betty, Elsie, Elizabeth, Mary, Jennifer. Me mum, me auntie, me cousin and Steph. Betty, Elsie, Elizabeth, Mary, Jennifer. So subsequently my daughter thought she was losing it because she couldn't remember her name. But how many of you, I used to get called Betty, Elsie, Elizabeth from being born. My grandma was 59 then. She wasn't doting at all, but I was always Betty, Elsie, Elizabeth. My son is Javash Tom because he's got two cousins, Jav and Ash. And when he goes to his granddad, he's always Javash Tom. And his dad used to be Javash Paul. So, you know, you don't have to be old and doting to get people's names wrong. But yeah, that was my grandma. And she was a canny old soul. I think I've told you about her before. She was a phenomenal pianist. She's concert trained. She played at the City Hall in Newcastle and the Theatre Royal, as far as I'm aware. She was very, very good. She was also a piano teacher. And I've just finished my piece of thread. So there we are, another piece of thread done for today. I kind of wandered off topic a bit. Like I said in part 7 and reiterated in part 8, you don't need to do anything you don't want to do. In 1925, when women respected their parents and, you know, had arranged marriages and things like that, my grandma wouldn't. She was waiting for someone who turned her head. And she used to say to me, Elizabeth, don't settle for the first one that comes along. Play the field. And I did. And you know, I sometimes wonder if I'd had a happier life, if I would have had a happier life had I not played the field. I am extremely happy now, but I wish I'd met Paul when I was 16. He would have fitted in with my mum and dad so well. He would have gone and worked for my dad. He would have had the business. You know, things would have been so different if I'd met Paul at 16. Stephanie and Tom probably would have been Jess and Kate. I did actually want to call Stephanie Caitlin. So possibly I might have had a Caitlin. But that wasn't meant to be. And I've lost my little threader again. Got my threader. So, you know, things happen for reasons, like I've said in another video, but also you shouldn't let anybody dictate what you do in your life. You know, a lot of people tell you to do things, and a lot of times it's because they want you to be safe. That's all. They want you to be safe, and by suggesting what they want you to do is an actual fact, just to protect you. And I know that that's what my mum did. I know a lot of her suggestions, while I look back and think that was so not what I wanted to do, it was to keep me safe. She was scared for me. But you've got to learn to make your mistakes, because if you don't make your mistakes, you'll not end up learning to adult. I don't think I grew up till I was 50. Did I grow up when I was 50? Did I grow up when I was... Have I grown up yet? I don't know. Anyway, thanks again for listening to my waffle. I hope you've taken something from it. Very slowly but surely, Billy has taken shape. I need to be doing some sewing between videos, otherwise it's never going to get finished. But I hope you've enjoyed this video, and watch out for the next one. Thank you. Still hasn't gone off.